Ladies and gentlemen, we have been trained to recognize blessing only in beauty, to recognize help only in comfort. But hear me clearly, when God decides to elevate you, He often begins by stripping you. He removes who you thought you needed. He breaks what you thought was secure. He shakes everything that cannot stand where He's taking you. And you, yes, you, if you are confused, hurting, lost, or isolated, don't be too quick to call it suffering. You might be standing in the middle of divine help disguised as disruption, because before God lifts you, He will always test you. Before He blesses you, He will expose everything that was blocking the blessing. When God begins to help you, He does not always come with bright lights or thunder from the sky. Sometimes He comes through the quiet exit of a person you thought you couldn't live without. Sometimes divine help begins with heartbreak. It begins with betrayal. It begins with people walking away, not because they are bad, but because their chapter in your story is over. And though it hurts, though it breaks something deep inside you, that loss is often the first sign that heaven is making room for what truly belongs. You thought they were the blessing, but they were the lesson. You thought they were helping you grow, but they were delaying your growth. And so God, in His wisdom, removed them, not to punish you, but to protect the version of you that you are becoming. Too often, we try to hold on to what God is trying to pull away. We cling to toxic relationships. We justify disrespect. We beg people to stay who were never meant to walk with us into our future. But if God didn't remove them, we would never let go. We would keep shrinking to fit their comfort. We would keep silencing ourselves just to maintain their presence. And so, in His mercy, not His anger, God lets them leave. He closes the door we were too afraid to shut. He ends the chapter we kept rewriting. He exposes the truth we kept ignoring, and when it happens, it feels like loss. It feels like abandonment. It feels like failure, but it is not. It is divine surgery, and surgery hurts before it heals. There are people you prayed for who were never praying for you. There are people you defended who were silently tearing you down. There are people you called loyal who were only there for the benefit. And God sees what you do not. He hears what you cannot. He knows what you refuse to accept. And when your purpose is calling and your heart is too full of what's draining you, He will empty it, not to leave you barren, but to make space for what is aligned. If you are not careful, you will grieve over what God rescued you from. You will call it heartbreak when it was actually heaven's intervention. You will pray for restoration in places where God gave you escape. But the truth is this: what left you was never meant to carry your calling. God removes people for 3 reasons: because they are draining your spirit, delaying your assignment, or distracting your focus. And you may not see it at first, because sometimes they love you in ways that feel good but cost too much of your soul. Sometimes they support your comfort but sabotage your growth. Sometimes they are not enemies, but they are limitations. And God doesn't want you to live limited. He wants you to rise. He wants you to walk in freedom. He wants you to step into the version of yourself that no longer needs approval to feel worthy, no longer needs attention to feel seen, no longer needs false friendships to feel complete. So when they leave, do not chase. When they change, do not beg. When they go silent, do not try to fix what God has already finished. There is a deeper peace on the other side of that removal, but you must endure the pain of the process. You must trust that what feels like rejection is actually redirection. You must believe that even though it hurts now, God never subtracts without the intention to multiply later. And when He removes, it is always because what's coming is greater than what's gone. Do not tie your future to people who cannot survive the weight of your growth. Do not build your next chapter on foundations that were cracking under your last one. Let God do what only He can do. Let Him separate so He can elevate. Let Him cut so He can heal. Let Him remove so He can reveal. You may feel alone for a while. You may feel confused. You may feel abandoned. But that is the silence where new strength is born. That is the clearing before the harvest. That is the signal that your spiritual elevation has begun. When God begins to help you, He does not always start by opening doors. Sometimes he begins by shaking the floor beneath your feet. Sometimes he interrupts your comfort, breaks your routine, and dismantles everything you thought was stable, not because he wants to destroy you, but because he knows comfort has become your cage. He knows that purpose cannot be awakened in complacency. And so, with divine precision, he begins to stir your spirit by making where you are too uncomfortable for you to stay. You used to feel at peace there, but now you feel restless. You used to find joy in those places, but now something feels off. That uneasiness, that discomfort, that tension, it's not a mistake. It's the voice of heaven saying, you have outgrown this level. You see, growth never begins in comfort. No calling has ever been born on a couch. No destiny was ever fulfilled in the place of ease. Every move of God starts with a disruption, and when your life starts shifting in ways you didn't plan, that may be the clearest sign that God is at work. Because he knows what you're capable of, even when you settle for less. He knows the fire inside you that's been buried under routine, and when he sees that you've stayed too long in a season that's beneath your calling, he will agitate your spirit, not to hurt you, but to push you, not to punish you, but to prepare you. You may look around and wonder why everything feels so unstable, why the people around you are changing, why the job you once loved now feels draining, why the city, the home, the dream you once pursued no longer satisfies you. That is not confusion, that is divine restlessness. That is your spirit recognizing that where you are can no longer hold where you're going. And so, what once felt like comfort now feels like constraint. What once felt like peace now feels like pressure. And that pressure is not meant to break you. It is meant to build you. Too many people pray for purpose, but then resist the process. They ask for elevation, but refuse the discomfort that comes with letting go. But you cannot stay the same and step into something new. You cannot remain in comfort and carry your calling. Something must shift. Something must stretch. Something must be released. And when God is helping you, he will often do this by sending divine discomfort into places you tried to make permanent. Sometimes the most merciful thing God can do is disturb your peace, because he knows that comfort kills progress. He knows that if he doesn't push you, you'll keep settling for a life beneath your potential. So when the shaking starts, don't panic, don't run, don't complain. Recognize it as the movement of a loving Father who cares more about your purpose than your preference, who is more committed to your growth than your temporary happiness, who will not let you remain comfortable when there is so much more inside of you. If everything feels like it's falling apart, ask yourself this. What if it's actually falling into place? What if the breaking is not the end but the beginning of something greater? What if the discomfort you feel is not a warning to stop but a signal to move forward? Because the truth is, the very thing you're resisting might be the door to your next season. The very shift you're praying against might be the answer to your earlier prayer for purpose. And sometimes the help of God comes disguised as disruption. God does not work according to your feelings. He works according to your future. He is not trying to please your present emotions. He is trying to position your eternal impact, and that's why he will shake your life when you become too familiar with what was only meant to be temporary. He will trouble the waters to make you leave the boat. He will disturb your comfort so you finally step into your calling, and when he does, it may not feel like help, but trust me, it is. Because if God never made you uncomfortable, you would never have moved. When God is helping you, one of the most misunderstood signs is delay, because delay feels like denial. Delay feels like silence. Delay feels like heaven has gone quiet while you are screaming for direction. But I have come to tell you today that delay is not denial. It is divine preparation. When God makes you wait, he is not punishing you, he is preparing you. When he closes a door, it is not always because you're not ready. It might be because what's behind that door is not worthy of what he placed inside of you. And because he sees what you cannot, he holds back what you think you want to give you what you truly need. Too often, we equate speed with favor. We think that if it's fast, it must be God. But God is not in a rush to deliver what you are not ready to handle. He is not interested in giving you what you pray for, if it will destroy you once you receive it. And so, in his love, not in his anger, he makes you wait. He stretches you. He matures you. He builds your faith in the space between the promise and the fulfillment. Because what's worse than not receiving the blessing is receiving it without the character to carry it. And in that waiting, you must decide who you are. In that delay, you must choose to trust, because the delay is where the fight of faith is tested. Will you still believe even when there's no visible progress? Will you still pray even when nothing changes? Will you still move forward even when the answer is not yet? That is where you are forged. That is where the roots grow deep. That is where the noise of this world fades and the voice of God becomes clearer than ever. Because in the silence of delay, God doesn't just work on your circumstances. He works on you. Many people collapse not because of the delay, but because of how they interpret it. They think God has forgotten them. They think their destiny is canceled, but divine delay is never divine absence. It is God writing a story that is bigger than your current view. And sometimes he will withhold the next step to make sure your heart is right, your motive is clean, your hands are steady. Because what's the use of getting there fast if you arrive empty, broken, and blind to the weight of the moment? So if the opportunity hasn't come yet, maybe it's not time. If the door hasn't opened yet, maybe the room behind it isn't finished. If the answer hasn't arrived yet, maybe God is still aligning the path so that when you do walk through it, it won't be temporary, it will be permanent. What is delayed with purpose can never be denied by pressure, and what God has assigned to your name will not miss you. It will arrive in its appointed time, not a second early, not a second late. Learn to embrace the delay as your classroom. This is where patience is developed. This is where endurance is built. This is where clarity is born. Because while you are waiting, heaven is working. While you are praying, heaven is positioning. While you are stretching, heaven is preparing divine connections, divine timing, divine resources. You don't see it yet, but just because you can't track the process doesn't mean the process isn't happening. Just because you don't feel movement doesn't mean God isn't orchestrating something behind the scenes so powerful, so precise, that when it manifests, even your enemies will have to admit it was God. And you must understand this. Some of the most dangerous things you've ever prayed for could have ruined you if God had answered too soon. You weren't rejected, you were protected, you weren't ignored. You were being insulated from premature exposure. God does not operate on your clock. He is not driven by your schedule. He is driven by purpose. He is driven by alignment. He is driven by destiny. And anything that would pull you out of divine alignment, he will delay until it can no longer derail you. So stop questioning the delay. Start preparing in it. Stop asking why it hasn't happened, and start asking what you still need to become. Because while you are focused on what you're waiting for, God is focused on who you're becoming in the waiting, and that version of you, the stronger, wiser, more grounded version, is the one he is building so that when the blessing arrives, you don't just survive it. You carry it, you multiply it, and you honor it. When God begins to help you, he doesn't just add, he subtracts. He doesn't just open doors, he closes them. He doesn't only bring people into your life. He also removes those who cannot carry the weight of your future. And one of the clearest, most painful, but most powerful signs that God is truly working in your life is this. Everything fake begins to fall away, the masks come off, the shallow friendships fade, the artificial peace you had in dead routines begins to dissolve. And what's left is not emptiness, it's clarity. What's left is not loneliness, it's revelation. What's left is not destruction. It is refinement, because God never allows the real you to rise while you are surrounded by what's false. Too many people pray for truth but panic when the lies begin to fall apart. They ask for elevation but are unwilling to lose the parts of themselves that are only built for survival. But when God starts to move, he starts by revealing. And when he reveals, he removes. He strips away the habits that no longer serve the version of you he's raising. He confronts the identity you've performed but never truly believed. He dismantles the walls you built around your pain and calls you to live in authenticity. not perfection, not performance, but truth, because only truth can carry purpose. Only truth can sustain elevation. And only the version of you that is real will be trusted with what's divine. This is why it often feels like everything is falling apart when you're growing. You lose friends you thought would be with you forever. You no longer relate to the same conversations, the same distractions, the same cycles. It's not that you're becoming arrogant. It's that your soul can no longer pretend. You cannot fake alignment. You cannot fake passion. You cannot fake destiny. So when you're walking with God, you will be forced to release anything and anyone you've been using to avoid yourself. He won't let you keep what's counterfeit when he's trying to give you what's eternal. The reason some people don't grow is not because they lack vision. It's because they refuse the separation. They want to evolve but stay comfortable. They want to rise but still seek validation from what was. They want purpose but are addicted to performance. But God will never elevate you while you are loyal to what's draining you. He will never pour into your life what your hands are too full to receive. So the loss you feel right now, the emptiness you didn't ask for, the silence that surrounds you, it may not be an attack. It may be the divine space clearing the room for what's real. And when God starts removing everything fake, he also starts revealing the real battle. Not the people, not the pressure, but the part of you that needed approval to feel worthy, the part of you that settled for surface when your spirit was craving depth, the part of you that performed strength while you were silently breaking. He loves you too much to let you live hidden behind the illusion, so he breaks the stage, he cancels the show, and he calls you into a season where you must be honest, honest with yourself, honest with God. Honest about your wounds, your fears, your failures, so that real healing can begin. And the beautiful thing about God's help is that when he removes the fake, he doesn't leave you with nothing. He leaves you with you. The real you, the you that is no longer afraid to walk alone. The you that no longer hides behind opinions. The you that is no longer bound by what they think or say or do. The you that has finally discovered that being whole is better than being liked. That being authentic is better than being accepted. That walking in truth is better than living in applause. So if you feel like everything is falling apart, if you're losing friends, losing interest in your old habits, losing taste for the shallow comforts you once craved, don't panic. Don't beg for the old to return. Don't patch up what God is tearing down. Let it go. Let them leave. Let it fall, because what's crumbling isn't your life. It's the lie, and what's rising is your purpose. What's rising is your truth. What's rising is the version of you that was always meant to carry greatness without pretending to be anything less.